Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our AI in Action series, where leading minds in AI from across the world share their story, success, and advice. AI in Action cuts through the hype and explores the true impact of artificial intelligence in our world today.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today, returning to the podcast, is Daniel Feller. Daniel is the AI program lead at Rhino Health. Daniel, welcome back to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, JP. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, and we're excited to have you again. So, Daniel, for those listening who didn't catch the episode that we did a few years ago, let's start with yourself, please, as we do with all of our guests. Could you give us a quick recap of your background in technology and what your journey has been from where you got started out, some of the roles you've held along the way, and what's led you to where you are today now in your relatively new position at Rhino Health?
So it started with a PhD in biomedical informatics, which is the study of healthcare data. Healthcare data is different than a lot of other data types that people are familiar with. Why? Because so much of it is in free text. And so when I was getting my PhD at Columbia, I studied a lot of NLP methods, as well as time series analysis for time to event types of models, because when we try to predict healthcare outcomes, a lot of it is time to event. So I worked with Noemi El-Haddad and Lena Mamikina at Columbia on NLP, more specifically applied to the world of HIV in New York City. I also have a public health background. And from that academic background, I went to Rightway Healthcare, which is a care navigation platform and a pharmacy benefits administrator, really trying to lower healthcare costs for consumers and reduce their friction with the kind of whole healthcare ecosystem. And I had a great time there. And now I'm at Rhino Health. And Rhino Health is a tech company. And what we're trying to do is trying to make it easier for the world's healthcare data to be connected. And what's a little bit different about Rhino is that we're doing federated learning and federated computing. Federated learning being all of the data can stay on the edge, and I'll bring compute to the edge rather than this paradigm of centralizing data, which often can't be centralized because of sensitivity concerns.
Excellent. Thank you for the background. And you've already answered what would have been my first question, which is tell us all about Rhino. Now, there's so much to unpack there because the problem that you're trying to solve is incredibly complex and you're trying to create a new paradigm in this space. I think for people listening to truly understand how challenging but how big a deal this is, we probably need to set the stage of what it's been like up to now. So if you could just elaborate on that in a little bit more detail as traditional healthcare data, how it's so siloed and restrictive, and then we can start to appreciate what Rhino will do and the possible implications for that.
So probably the biggest challenge to the delivery of AI and AI-driven insights in healthcare, modern medicine, is that data is siloed. It's very sensitive, healthcare data. It's often articulating things about people that really is secret to them and really shouldn't be shared with anybody else. And because of that respect for privacy that, permeates healthcare, data is often not aggregated. And the existing paradigm for doing data science is aggregating lots of data. This is really across industries to build AI models, to glean insights from observational data, to do medical research and try to figure out the best way to take care of a patient. You need lots of data, and that data is always aggregated. Where we're doing something different at Rhino is that data can remain on the edge, and I'm still going to be able to train AI models and run observational studies because I'm going to have the insight of all of that data by using federated computing or federated learning to generate insights for the data at the edge and then aggregate those insights through the cloud. And so that's what Rhino Health does. We deliver federated infrastructure for computing, and we've had a lot of traction so far. I think this is something that really resonates, especially with kind of the research community right now because it's such an exciting idea, and we're just starting to get traction in industries from saying, hey, I really can't generate the insights or the type of models that I need to generate because I can't find data to centralize. And so availability of data now is much more focused on leaving data on the edge and bringing my compute to the edge and generating insights.
That all flows nicely through your role as the AI program lead. A lot of what you talked about there is edge computing, and I want to better understand your role and responsibilities. How are you utilizing AI in its modern form, and what components of AI and data science are at play to help build Rhino from the inside out?
That's a great question. So I'll just talk about a couple projects that we're working on. One thing we're doing today is we're supporting researchers at Emory University. What they're trying to do is develop prognostic models for breast cancer care. The question here is, given a specific chemotherapy, can I predict the patient's response to treatment? So this would be an incredible clinical tool. And the data used to train these prognostic algorithms is really hard to come by. It's massive digital pathology slides. So these could be up to 6 gigabytes per slide. Basically, it's a digital image of a tumor sample. And what we're doing with Emory is we've connected them with 2 hospitals who have data to provide to the researcher, but they don't want to give up governance of that data. They want to retain that data behind their institutional firewall. So we're allowing researchers to perform their studies. Data is never leaving the edge. So that's one really exciting example in breast cancer research. Another one I can talk about is with this international consortia where we have 10 different sites, clinical sites across the world, contributing computed tomography images. So CT scans is often used by doctors to see someone's blood vessels and their arteries. And basically what we're doing there is we're working with researchers from Oxford University, and they're able to train their deep learning algorithms on data from those health centers without taking control of that data. Again, so just a really exciting thing. And in both those cases, federation is important not only to preserve privacy, but because the data itself is so voluminous. If I'm talking about 6 gigabytes for every sample in my data set, that's going to be very challenging to transfer. Moreover, I don't want to burden the researcher necessarily with paying for all that storage. So let's just leave the data where it is. Let's not create unnecessarily duplications of the data, which is something that more people are going to have to start doing because of GDPR. You can't create unnecessary copies of the data. It's very exciting that we can allow access to the data without creating copies. It's another proof point for federation.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
So Daniel, what Rhino is trying to do really is create a new platform, a new use case, and give hospitals and health systems more confidence that they can share this data, which will ultimately benefit everyone. Treatment and diagnostics should improve, benefit the healthcare providers, but it's not easy. Can you talk about the early days of the build? Because the idea makes absolute sense, but from first launching the company, getting a minimal viable product, getting it built to a point where hospitals and health systems are confident enough that what you're showing them, it works, it's viable, they can trust in it, they know they're not going to have security breaches or breach any HIPAA compliance laws. What has that journey been like?
It's been not a trivial journey, but one that I think we've had a lot of success in because of the strength of our engineering team. Just the way the whole system is built, which is really around basically sending Docker containers from one system to another. So basically the way that you're going to deploy a machine learning model or train a model is you're going to package your model in a container and ship it to the edge. And I think that's very easy for people to understand. And we make it very easy for people to see computation is happening behind my institutional firewall and not in someone else's possession. And so because we offer so much monitoring to the people that are providing the data, they really feel comfortable that they're retaining control of that data. And thus they're saying, okay, now I'm going to let researchers come towards my data. I'm going to let industry partners come towards my data and really build these incredible AI models.
It's just got me thinking about like the so many exciting use case applications down the line once the data gets to a certain critical mass point. But even near term, what can you tell us about what you're seeing? Because you'll obviously have a much greater sense of what's possible. So what excites you about the problems that you're solving, the information you're making available, both now and take us a few years down the road? Where do you see this going?
I think even now, the message of federation is resonating with people because we're getting traction outside of healthcare. For example, in financial services, where creating high-performing fraud detection models is really important. You have financial services companies creating those models, but they don't own the data. It's often the banks that are doing the transactions that form the basis for training those models. And so what we're seeing now is the banks don't want to necessarily give up control of that data. So they're just going to basically provide access to that data to train fraud detection models and other models of that sort without ever releasing governance of that data. And so that's really exciting, and that's happening now. And then the other type of interest we're getting is forming consortia of companies that have very commercially sensitive data. For example, protein folding data is an incredible resource today for drug discovery. And the drug companies spend a lot of time and effort curating these data sets. So they think about them really as their intellectual property. But every biopharma company has such data. And by combining that data, all these companies can really advance modern medicine. And so this is a place where we've sponsored federated learning projects by giving these pharma consortia access to larger data sets than they would have had otherwise without asking them to release ownership of this protein folding data, which is so important to them. So I think those are really two great examples.
And that's huge because up to now they've been completely closed off. So there's data that sits across the street in a direct competitor, which could rapidly advance their own research and vice versa. I want to now look internally a little bit and talk about the team that you're working with and where it's going to grow to. Look, you and I were speaking off air, and I know there's a lot of exciting developments that you can't share on this particular episode, but Rhino really is it's growing fast and is going to continue to do so. The next few years are going to be truly exciting. When you look at the AI component, the team that you oversee, give us a look behind the scenes of the current makeup, the background of the individuals, and then walk us through where you expect it to be in a few years from now.
Yeah, as an early stage company, you want more engineers on your team than really anybody else. And that's our paradigm right now, is we're really still in build mode. We're starting to figure out what the market expects from a federated learning platform and really be responsive to what the market's looking for as the market evolves. So it's allowed us to stay really agile. We don't ever want to be a service company. We're really a technology platform. And so I imagine our product teams will increase in size later down the road, but it's never going to be the case that we're going to have large teams of people trying to help clients basically with federated learning solutions. It's really bring your own code, bring your compute, bring your data to the platform. We're just going to provide the infrastructure that's going to make it easy for you to manage a federated computing or federated learning consortia.
Daniel, we've already covered so much, so I want to finish on an area that we always try cap the interviews, which is speaking to an audience of potential either customers or future employees. Obviously, a huge amount of investment going into AI startups within the healthcare space because there's so many possibilities and the technology is very much transformational. So to grab the attention of customers, or more importantly, early stage employees, is incredibly difficult. I know it's something that you and I have talked about previously. With Rhino's specific go-to-market strategy, with the area that you're tackling, you've obviously got a unique story to tell. But I want to finish on that because it's important to get that message out there. When you're speaking to people about Rhino, its mission, its environment, its culture, what is it that you've been telling them to get them excited enough to either join you guys as an employee or open to use the platform if they're a potential customer?
I really think the hook is federation. And I think a lot of people that want to work at Rhino and want to do business with us understand that the centralized paradigm for analyzing data and training models is going to quickly become outdated. You're seeing this with the large tech companies. So to train models on click behavior, for example, Google is doing that computation at the edge. They're not sending your personal data, your personal click behavior data to a centralized server. And so I think as people become aware of what is being done with their data, especially in the realm of health, institutions are not going to have a choice but to do federated learning and federated computing. And that's really what we're so excited about. And we see a better future in terms of keeping data where it's generated and not violating patient privacy and data governance at will. It's a really exciting time to be at Rhino and in the world of federated computing.
Daniel, thank you for coming back on the show. It's always great to have return guests and hear about the evolution of their own career, but learn about what's new in the space, and great insight into Rhino Health. I know when you and I were chatting a few weeks ago and you told me about what Rhino is doing, I was like, we got to get you back on the show soon. So appreciate you coming on and sharing the mission, giving us an insight into where you're at in your journey. And it's obviously an incredible business idea, which has insane potential. So we wish you, the team, and everyone at Rhino Health the very best of luck in the months and years to come. Look forward to having you back on the show again in the near future.
My pleasure, JP.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.